Welcome to Bite-Sized Stories. Today, we meet Harold. Harold was not a man of God. He wasn't a thinking man either. He considered himself a practical man, full of useful skills, common sense, and a good dose of stoicism. As far as stoicism is practiced by the common man, not by the philosophers who find fault with all angles and make any statement a question that must be debated before taking any type of action. He was a Stoic, but he was into action. This morning's action revolved around cleaning up the back acreage. A few generations ago, the back pasture had been used as a winter garden, supporting the family each season with a wide variety of root vegetables, alliums, squashes, and peas. It was a medicinal garden as much as a vegetable garden, a way to save money as much as a way to use the land. But when the old house was demolished in 1943, the garden became too far away to be practical, and the land was left to fall fallow. The new garden was placed in front of a house. Mary Ann had hated it there. She said that it ruined the view of her beautiful front door. But alas, that's where the light and the soil were the best. Today, the new garden, as it was still called, was used more for flowers than for vegetables, with wild climbing wisteria trailing over ornate trellises and dwarf sunflowers reaching up towards the sky. Harold had a challenging time keeping it all under control on his own. The rest of the land was enough work for 2 men. Adding the new garden was a task too far. But still, he enjoyed looking out his front window into the wildness of it, and took pleasure in the way it had evolved over time. An added bonus was that now, Mary Ann's beautiful door was fully blocked by the garden, in a way that made him feel cozy and private and contained, something he could never feel out on the rest of his inhospitable, windswept property. The back acreage was to be turned into an enclosure for sows, a pig breeding facility, one could say. It was an industrious project, and one that Harold hadn't intended to undertake in his advancing age. He would get help with the actual building, of course, a barn raising of sorts, but preparation of the land and the subsequent care of the sows was down to him. In his younger years, Harold had assumed that his sons would come home. It wasn't that he didn't have sons, he did. 3 of them. 3 country rednecks who had rushed out to the city the minute the ink dried on their graduation papers. They were doing fine, all 3 of them. Practical boys turned to practical men who would be successful in all areas. But he worried about them still. Worried about the softness that city life would bring. Worried about the women they would marry. Worried about the ways his grandsons would be raised. He didn't worry about the farm, though. That piece would take care of itself. If his sons didn't want it, the big agro conglomerates surely did. They were after him constantly, calling nearly every week to see if he was ready to sell. Not this year, he would tell them. This year I'm expanding. This year my corn will be taller than ever, and my sows will be fatter than ever. The men would laugh at that, chuckling together over the eternal optimism of farming that would nudge its way out into the open every once in a while past the Stoic facade. This year, he knew, was going to be the best year of the decade.